Hi, welcome to Buzz and Bark. My name is Patricia, and I'm not going to be doing Reiki or animal communication today. I'm actually going to be channeling, and I'm going to be channeling. Let me turn this down a little bit. I'm trying to drown out the Navy jets because they've been really loud this week. And it's not easy to channel and do Reiki and all these other things when there's noise. So I've been using this little sound box, and I think the ocean sound is a little bit too loud. So I'm going to be channeling the peace dog Aloka. And if you look on my videos, you'll see that I've actually channeled him already. And I want to channel him because he's made a lot of progress and he's had a lot of different things happen. And he is the Walk for Peace monk dog. So if you were following, and I don't know why you wouldn't be, but if you were following the Theravada monks that were walking across the United States last fall and winter, and then they've, excuse me, they've traveled to Sri Lanka, India, Thailand, and some other places. And they've been spreading peace through mindfulness. Well, Aloka is, just to give you the brief story, is a dog that followed the monks on a pilgrimage in India. So he followed two particular monks. One is a monk from Thailand, and the other monk is from the United States. And the monk in the United States went through this long process of adopting, well, okay, so Aloka was a street dog in India, and he started following the monks. And then at the end of the pilgrimage, they said, well, we don't want Aloka to go back to living on the streets. So Bhikkhu Panakara, who is a monk from Fort Worth, Texas, and went through the process of adopting, not from a shelter, but just bringing the paperwork and everything you had to do to bring a dog from India to the United States. And then Aloka walked most of the pilgrimage, that was 23,000 miles, in the U.S. Or was it 23,000. Was it 23,000 miles from Texas to D.C.? Or is it 2,300 miles or something like that? But anyways, they walked that pilgrimage, and he became world famous. And then he's had some challenges, such as he will get aggressive toward other dogs because he had, mostly spent his early life as a street dog in India. And he, at first, had some issues with getting on an airplane and traveling. He was terrified of that. And then the other thing that was a challenge for him is that he is madly in love with one of the monks. I think his name is Pytharmu, or I'm not really good at foreign names. Anyways, the monk from Thailand that they call his uncle, very attached to him. And when that monk went back to Southeast Asia, Aloka was distraught. And he kept looking for him at the monastery in Texas and so on. And then shortly after that, Aloka went to Thailand and to India and Nepal. And so the uncle monk was traveling with them. And so now Aloka's back in the United States, and we're not hearing really much about what's going on now. And so I want to find out is, what's going on with him? Like, how does he feel about all these changes that happen and all the attention that he's getting? Because again, he's world famous. Everybody wants a piece of him, basically. So if there's an event, they want him to come to the event. There's a lot of times where he's in a room and everybody's coming up and petting him. And he gives off body language that he doesn't really want that. Like he's giving that sort of distancing body language that dogs will do when they don't want to be pet or whatever. They kind of shrink away and things like that, and people are reaching for him. And so what's going on with him? Does he know that he has a mission and whatnot? So I've got a singing bowl. I'm going to do this to bring him in. In my eye, this eye keeps watering today because I have allergies. So if you see my eye watering, it's not because I'm crying. It's just because I'm having allergies. Okay, so remember to like, subscribe, and share. and comment. I know this is probably weird for some people because you're expecting Reiki, but you get channeling instead. But I'm multi-talented. So here we go. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Aloka permission and see if he wants to have this conversation. And I'm asking if it's for the highest and best for all concerned. And then I place him, because this is a remote session, I place him in a bubble of light. I place myself in a bubble of light just so there's no interference. And that also brings protection. I get my little stone. Okay, Loka's got like really mixed mixed energy today. So I'm doing this channeling session on June 26, 2026. And I'm going to put this on pause for a sec. Okay, so I have mixed energy. On one hand, he seems really exhausted, like he's just straining. And the other hand, he's kind of mirthful, like he's happy about something, and I'm going to tune into what that happiness is. Okay, there's a young woman. She may be either Vietnamese or maybe Laotian from Laos, and she's a teenager. She's got some friends, and they're involved with the temple that's in Texas, in Fort Worth, Texas. And she's a regular, and it looks like she's starting to become one of his dog walkers. And she spent some time with him, and he's showing me from his perspective. Obviously, I can't see it from her perspective. I don't have her permission. Okay, it was quiet before I started doing this session, and now there's planes flying overhead. So I'm going to do the best that I can, but I am coming in and out of a semi-trance, and it's kind of hard for me to do this communication session when I keep getting interrupted by this noise. But I'm going to do my best because there's no good time to do it unless I get up at like 2 in the morning. Okay, so let me get back into it. Let me take a deep breath. Okay, so there's this woman, and she's got some friends, and they were playing with him. He's got a lot of toys and things like that that people have gifted him with, and thank you for that. He really likes these toys, and so they come and they play with him, and then he's able to get some of his energy out. But he's been a little sluggish lately because he's had a lot of travel, and he's had a lot of experiences, and there's just been a lot of energy on him, and he's needed some time out, which is why I've waited a while to do this session with him, because I knew that he was, on all those journeys and all these other things, and he had just so much happening. Like most humans would not be able to handle everything that he had happening. And he's a young dog, but he's not a puppy, so he's getting toward his older years. They're saying he's around 5 or 6. I'm going to ask him how old he is. Yeah, he says he's between 5 and 6. He's about 5.5, almost going towards 6 years old. He's not quite 7. 7 would be a fully adult dog, and then they become senior dog after 7. We're hoping he lives a long life, but you never know, because of any trauma he might have had in his early years. He may have not had the proper nutrition in his puppy years and his younger years because he was a street dog. And they really rely on the compassion of humans. And in India, there are a lot of people that care about the street dogs, and then there are a lot of people who, well, the word is hate, unfortunately, and will cause quite a lot of damage to them and disrupt, the lives of these dogs. And his mother, and he said this before in another session, his mother was killed by a car, and it was done on purpose, and he was about 4 months old at the time. And so at that point, he and his siblings split up in different directions, and then he was pretty much on his own by 6 months. And so he was scrambling on the street at 6 months, learning how to defend himself against other dogs, which he did get attacked, cars, people throwing things at him. He learned how to dodge, how to protect himself, and the thing that he wanted more than anything was peace. So he somehow made it to the area where the Calcutta airport is, and he felt peace, like he just felt peace, and he didn't know where it was coming from. And then these monks appeared, and the monks were what was bringing the peace. So he started, out of curiosity, he was sniffing them and not sure he could trust them because he really had not seen anything quite like that. I mean, there were 100 monks walking, right? 100 monks. That's a lot of monks. And he picked up on their peace. Now, when these monks walk, they're practicing mindfulness. So they're practicing mindfulness walking, where they're watching their breath or witnessing their breath, and they're staying very focused. And even if their bodies are in pain, even if it's really hot, which India is really hot, right? Hot and humid. So no matter what discomfort these monks are feeling, they're rising above it because they're using this mindfulness. And so that means that there's this radiation of peace. And because Aloka was craving that calm and that peace, he tentatively started following these monks, and there were two monks in particular that he was attracted to. One of them was the monk that I mentioned earlier from Thailand, who immediately, like love at first sight between those two. And then Panyakara, who became basically the human father of Aloka. Now, both of these monks are, very, well, I don't like that. It's kind of weird to say passionate, right? Or, words like that, because we think of monks as being sort of detached. But there is a lesson that the monks are learning from Aloka, and Aloka's learning from the monks, and that is the teaching of impermanence, right? That's a big chunk of Buddhism, is that everything's always changing and to accept impermanence. And so Aloka's had a lot of impermanence, a lot of change in his life, and so have these monks. But because there's a love bond, and Aloka's told me they had previous lifetimes together. So Aloka was a human monk, and these were his brothers. So he didn't know all of the monks in previous lifetimes, but definitely these two. And he wants them all to be together as a threesome. But because one of the monks lives in Thailand, and he lives very austere, like he lives in a cave, literally, he lives in a cave. And he sleeps sitting up in meditation. And he, very, very strict Theravada monk. And Theravada tradition is probably one of the strictest that I've heard of the Buddhist traditions. They're the ones that you'll see walking for thousands of miles, usually on a pilgrimage, or for peace is another one. Or they there's the forest monks of Thailand, and you can go look it up. Theravada monks. They're very strict. They eat only one meal a day. It's usually around noon, and then after that they don't. And even when they're walking, they're only eating one meal a day. Now, they'll drink water and liquid and things like that, but they'll only eat one meal a day. So here comes Aloka into this setting with these monks, and then he walks this thousands of miles. I think it's over 2,000 miles in India with the monks. And then he comes back to the United States. So there's this respite of maybe, well, let me see, he comes back around 2023, 2024, and then in 2025, the fall of 2025, he begins this journey from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C. Now, he didn't make the whole journey. He ended up having an injured knee, like one of his back knees. And so he went into surgery, and then he had to take the rest of the walk off. So when they got to, I believe it was when they got to South Carolina, Aloka was taking back to North Carolina. When they got to North Carolina, he was taken back to South Carolina, and he was given surgery. Or I believe it was in Carolina, or it might have been in Virginia. But anyways, he was. The monks kept walking until they got to DC, and Aloka was being taken care of by others. So he has had many separations from the monks and many separations from his two favorite monks. And so I'm going to ask him what happens during that separation, like what's going on with him. Like, does he understand that this impermanence, or is it just very traumatic for him? Well, he feels like he's losing part of his body. So yeah, oh, this is kind of painful actually, because I can feel it. He feels like a limb is being ripped away from him when he's not with these two monks. Like there's such a bond. I mean, it goes back other lifetimes. It's like this feeling of there you are again. And this time, like, okay, so I feel like he lost, when he was a human monk, he lost them, either through death. I see one as an elder, like one as an elder teacher, and he's like an apprentice or novice monk, and then he is trained, or, this teacher for maybe a couple decades, and then the teacher dies, right? And then there's the whole life of Buddha, which I feel like he was there as well. I feel like he was there with the Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, which was it, like 2,600 years ago or something like that. He was there also, and he was there at the death of Buddha. And so he experienced that, and he was a human. He wasn't an animal in that lifetime. He was a human. And then he's had several lifetimes with those other two monks, right? And those other two monks, I believe, are also in that lifetime with the original Buddha. So they are carrying the gem, the gems, the original teachings of the one that we know as the first Buddha. At least in the West, we know him as the first Buddha. And so there's been a historic relationship. So it's not just him meeting the monks in Calcutta, and this is like the first time they've ever known each other, and he's just a pet. Like he's not a pet, for one thing. He's more than that. He has become a symbol, an ambassador for peace for the animals, right? And there's even a foundation called the Aloka Foundation, which was started by the monastery in Texas and in Panyakara. I'll just call him, you can say Bhikkhu Bhante or whatever. He has all these different names that you put in front of Panyakara. He's a venerable monk. So he's part of a bigger mission. And so does he know that? Yes, he knows that because he's been told that over and over again. And he does understand when the monks talk to him. He does understand because there's visuals, there's emotions, and there's words. And he's told me before he knows several languages because the monks speak several languages. Both the pilgrimage in India and the pilgrimage in the United States had monks from all these different nations, and they spoke different languages. But the common language is called Pali, and Pali is the language of Buddhism. So the original teachings, the documents, everything, they're in Pali, and it's called the Pali Canon. Now, does he know about this? Yes, he does, because he hears the chants, he hears the teachings, He's at the feet of the monks when they're doing the teachings. He hears the same teachings over and over and over again, like each night of the pilgrimage. And during the afternoon, he would be sitting with the monks and he would hear it and absorb the teachings just like we can as humans, but in a more canine sense. But because he had been human in other lifetimes, he already knows these teachings on a very deep level. And so he enjoys hearing the chants, he enjoys hearing the talks. He loves the name Buddha. And so when he hears that, and also he wants to protect Panyakara, like he's very protective of the monk, because the monk is very small, like he's not a big guy, he's a little guy. Well, that's not nice to say, but I mean, he's petite, right? The monks are not tall. They're usually, with the exception of the monk from Thailand, he's a bit taller than the others, but they're about 5 feet tall, right? And so, and then there's crowds of people that when the monks were walking, there were people kind of squeezing in on them. And this would make Aloka defensive, not for himself so much, but because he's very protective, he's very territorial of his monks, and he's possessive of them. So this is something that they're going to have to work on, just as a side note, because he needs to learn to relax a little bit, especially when they had bodyguards and everything else. Because they had like protection like for most of the walk that they did in the US, but not the beginning of the walk. They didn't get protection until one of the monks lost his leg because he had an accident, a car hit him. And that was early on. That was when they were still in Texas, because Texas is a huge state, for those of you who don't realize that. And so it took them a month just to get through Texas. And then they started picking up speed as they went through the other states, because the other states are much smaller than Texas. Texas was the biggest state that they walked through. And then they went through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C. So that was the route. Now, he didn't do that whole thing. And, okay, so how are you able to do those walks? Because as a dog, I know I've walked dogs, and they get tired after maybe a mile or two, or 3-4 miles. So how are you able to walk for, like, I don't know, 8 hours a day, with a couple breaks, obviously the lunch break, and then probably some stops along the way? Well, he didn't walk the whole thing. So there were times where he would be taken out, like out of the group of monks and put in a vehicle. He was put in the RV, and he didn't like it. But once he got over the fuss of being separated from the monks, he would fall asleep. And God, so when they started getting toward Georgia, he had a lot of pain in his body, like his knee was bothering him. And I see him sort of dragging, it was a hind leg, and I see him sort of dragging the leg, almost like a dog that's got hip dysplasia, even though he didn't have that, he had like a knee problem. And of course they started noticing, and they had vets look at him, and then the vet said that, you need to get surgery. So how did he feel about that? How did he feel about the surgery and being separated? He said it was upsetting for him, but he was brave. Like he knew he was okay, but he was a little bit nervous. And it was painful. So the surgery was painful and the recovery was painful, but he had a lot of people around him that were very loving toward him and very kind. And he was first introduced to toys. He had never had a dog toy, or at least that's what he's telling me, and he didn't even know what to do with it. So he had his first toy, and at first he didn't have any interest in it because he didn't really know what it was. But then when it started getting his scent on it, and then people were kind of doing this, then he started going, oh, is it okay? And so he pounced on the toy, and people were like, oh, yeah, and saying how cute he was and things. So then he knew it was okay for him to pounce on the toy. So because he had permission to do that. And then he started biting on the toy and kind of tugging on the toy and things like that, and then slapping it around, and he wasn't told he can't do that. So a lot of the adjustment he had to make going from being a street dog to being in a home and being, he's using the word civilization. He had to learn what the rules are. Like he didn't know where the boundaries were. He didn't know what was okay and what wasn't okay. And the food was different, because he didn't really get the same kind of dog food or the same kinds of food in India. He ate a lot of scraps from restaurants or things in the garbage or things on the street. Or occasionally there would be people that would dump like a bag of dog food, not the best quality, but the best, they would dump the dog food and all the dogs would scramble to eat. And sometimes he wasn't tough enough and the other dogs would push him out of the way and he didn't get enough nutrition. So a lot of the problems that he had with his leg was a lack of nutrition when he was younger. And also, he was also, when he was walking with the monks in the India pilgrimage, he was hit by a car and then he got sick and there was all these different things that happened which weakened his body. So then there was a catch up that needed to happen. So when he came to the United States, the nutrition was better, the vet care was great, and so he was picking up speed and getting much stronger. But then he goes on this walk and the walk was straining for him, but he loved the monks and he loved being with the monks and he loved hearing the teachings and he loved, the love that he would feel from like people coming to see the monks. And then he would see tears and he would see happiness and he would see reverence. And so he's taking this all in and he knows it's really important. Like he knows it's important because he's watching how the monks are responding to these crowds that are showing up. And he feels the emotions of especially his two favorite monks. So when they're getting teary or anything like that, he's feeling that in his body. So he's collecting all these emotions and it's exhausting. But on one hand, it's very peaceful for him. But on the other hand, it's very exhausting. So you'll see him, and I was going to ask him this question, like he'll be like walking and then he'll just stomp. I've never seen a dog do this before where they're walking and then they just, in the middle of the walk, they just go on the ground and lay down, like just kind of landing on the ground, like plopping on the ground. And I've seen him do this so many times. And at first I wasn't sure if he was just being stubborn, but he's saying he wasn't being stubborn. That's what he does when he's exhausted, because that's how exhausted he gets. It the only thing he can do is just to drop onto the ground. So if you could imagine having something like chronic fatigue, he doesn't have chronic fatigue, but for a human, if you had chronic fatigue and you've gone through a whole day and you can't go any further, so you just drop on the couch or your bed or whatever it is, that's what that's like for him. Okay, I was disrupted again. You might still hear the airplanes in the background. Okay, so that's why he was talking about fatigue. So I'm getting another disruption on my computer. So the other question I have for him is impermanence. What is his feelings about impermanence, and is he learning impermanence, and how difficult is that for him? Well, that's his life lesson. That's his main lesson, is impermanence and changes that are happening and how to be at peace with them. And not only is he learning it, but as he's learning it, all these people around the world that follow him, which is thousands, if not millions of people, are also learning about impermanence with him, because he's a mirror for us. So when we were getting upset and when we were crying at that airport video where the Thai monk, I think it's called Paitharmu, I think his name is Paitharmu, when he was going back to Thailand, it was really crushing to watch Aloka. It was very dramatic. He was dropping on the ground. He was trying to get under the airplane barrier. He was crying really loud. Of course, now what you need to know is Aloka is a crier. Like, he's very vocal. You'd think he was a Basenji or something. He's a very vocal dog. So he cries a lot for a lot of different things. But because we're seeing the separation, what was really happening wasn't so much about him. It was about us. We didn't want to see the monks separating. We didn't want this whole peaceful event to end. We enjoyed watching the walk and then the big festival that was in the Vesak festival in Texas, and the monks going to New York together, to the United Nations and all these other things. And then they were finally, it was that final thing where, okay, the Thai monks are all leaving. They're going back to Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, wherever they're from. They're all leaving. And it was kind of devastating, I think, for any of us watching. But then we're seeing the dog mirroring our emotions. And he's saying we were all learning about impermanence, not just him, but us. And then as time went on, he understood because people would talk to him and say, hey, you're going to see these monks again very soon. Then, they went to Thailand and they were reunited, and it wasn't as dramatic. It was a lot calmer. And so then we haven't really seen much of Aloka since he's been back. So what's going on now? Please get us up to speed. Okay, so he's in a resting mode. Panyakara's not. Panyakara's still doing a lot of traveling. He's still doing a lot of teaching, so he's in and out. He's in and out. So Aloka has been meeting more of these people and bonding with new people at the temple because, with the Thai monks gone and needing new people to walk him. And sometimes volunteers come in and walk him, and different people have walked him. But there's this young Vietnamese girl. Well, I say young woman, she's a teenager, who he's coming really attached to. And she has taken it on to, like, I haven't seen any videos on this. This is just coming from him. So I trust that this is true. That she's walking him and spending time with him, and he's becoming very bonded with her. And so he's going to have a lesson of impermanence with her as well, because she's got other things that she needs to do as well. She's a teenager. I'm sure she's got school and other things going on. But then over this summer, they're going to become very bonded, and then in the fall, there's going to be a type of separation. But he doesn't know about that. This is just something I'm seeing myself. I'm kind of seeing into his future a little bit. But he's okay. So he says he's bonding with new people. And he's getting better with this impermanence. He's getting better with it. He's getting better at, just because dogs can do this very well, he's just being in the moment. He's just practicing, like the monk says, practice gratitude, be in the moment, be mindful. And so he's doing those things. And he follows Panyakara's example. So if Panyakara is being anxious or nervous about things, which we don't really see all that much, at least not in front of the scenes, maybe behind the scenes. Whatever the monk is mirroring or experiencing, Aloka is going to mirror that publicly. So then it looks like Aloka's the one who is having, whatever the separation is or the impermanence lesson or whatever, but actually it's both him and the monks. So he knows that they miss him when they're not together because, again, he wants the three to be together, the two monks and him. He wants that to be his family. And that isn't how it's going to happen, although they will reunite and, depart and reunite and depart, reunite and depart. There's a lot of reunions that are still coming up in the future. And the Thai monk, I feel like, and I don't know if this isn't coming from Aloka, this is coming from me, I feel like he's going to come and have some extended period here in the U.S. And I don't know what that's related to, if there's going to be another walk or if he's just going to help with the big project that's happening with they're building these structures with the teachings of the original teachings of Buddha that they're etched in stone. And so it's a project that's going to take, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, 50 years to complete. So he might come back and work on that. It's another interruption. So, okay, so there are going to be some other projects. There are going to be some other things. They will have some time together. So that's what's coming up for that. That's my feeling. The other thing that I want to ask him is what's coming up with the Aloka Foundation, which is, does he know what his mission has been? Does he know what his mission is to help rescued animals? And what's he going to do about his aggression toward other dogs? Because you can't be a peace dog and, having these more aggression, defensiveness with other dogs. Like, what's he going to do about that? So the first one is, yes, he knows about the Aloka Foundation. Yes, it is his mission. Uh, he is going to be doing a lot of traveling actually in North America. He's going to be with the monk. He's going to be visiting animal sanctuaries. There's going to be a lot of media attention. Again, he's going to get a lot of attention. And he's going to even, there's going to be some campaigns against the, oh, this is going to be challenging. They're going to be having campaigns against the slaughterhouses. Now, Fort Worth, Texas is a very cattle driven place. Think of cowboys, right? Texas is a very big place of feedlots and slaughtering and a lot of animal abuse in Texas, not just livestock, but also, I don't like the word livestock, but also dogs. There's a lot of street dogs. There's a lot of euthanasia of dogs in shelters. There's a lot of, and cats. So Panyakara is not afraid to speak the truth. He's not afraid to speak up, and they could get targeted, but hopefully not, because they're practicing mindfulness, and they do have protection around them, in a more spiritual sense. So they'll be fine, but they're going to take that on, not right away. What they're going to do right away is they're going to start going to the other Buddhist animal sanctuaries, and Panyakara would like to be part of the animal sanctuaries. I don't know if he's going to start, I don't know if they're going to start an animal sanctuary in Texas. There's already some, I think. But they're going to travel to the ones in the US and in Canada. They're also going to be going to the monasteries, especially the Theravada ones across the US and Canada, and they're going to be doing some joint effort of animal welfare through the eyes of mindfulness and Buddhism. And they're going to teach shelter staff how to meditate, and to be more mindful and to be more peaceful, because when you work in a shelter, it can be very emotional. The volunteers, the people that work there, there's so much tragedy that they have to face, and animal rescue groups. So what they're going to be doing is he's going to be doing teachings directly in mindfulness for animal shelters, animal sanctuaries, animal rescue groups, and activism, advocacy. He's going to bring in that ingredient of mindfulness so that it becomes nonviolent communication and, speaking up for the animals in a way that's less emotional, less passionate, and more calm and peaceful, so that everybody on all sides of the fence can hear what's going on and you can actually have real conversations. Because right now, animal advocates, including myself, can get very passionate and very upset. And then when you get upset, you shut off the rational part of your brain, which is this part of the brain right here, the frontal neocortex. And so because of that, we get angry, right? We can't control our anger. We say cutting words. We're being too emotional, right? You get anxiety, you get like all these fight or flight and things going on. So what the monk and Aloka are going to do is they're going to teach mindfulness to people who work in those fields. So that's going to be one of their projects. Another project is, of course, the Aloka Foundation raising money, which will go to these different shelters and things, and they'll also get involved in going to events for animal welfare. And he will be invited to talk about mindfulness. The monk will be invited to talk about mindfulness, and of course, Aloka will go along as an ambassador. And eventually, what's going to happen is right now he's getting crowds and people are paying more attention to the dog than the monk. That is actually going to start calming down as more and more people get deeper into mindfulness. Because right now we're only learning about mindfulness, and mindfulness sounds so easy, just follow your breath, just do everything slowly, all these things. It's not easy. I'm practicing it. And, it's hard not to get distracted, because to sit down and to quiet your mind means that you hear everything in your mind. And it's just the opposite of what you think it's going to be. So you think that, oh, I'm going to sit, I'm going to breathe, and it's going to be quiet, it's going to be peaceful. No, all the stuff from your childhood, that anger from yesterday, that thing that you repressed, all of those things come up, and you have to learn to treat them like clouds and to let them float away. And then eventually you will find peace. But when you sit down, when you first learn mindfulness meditation, and even after you've been doing it for years, I've heard, and even decades, people will say the same thing. that it's sometimes extremely hard to quiet the mind. And so the more people get deeper into the mindfulness practices, the less they're going to grasp and cling at Aloka, and they're going to be more interested in calming their own minds and being more peaceful and following these teachings, whether they're a Buddhist or not. Because a lot of the Buddhist teachings are relevant to all of us. Because the more we can use those teachings, the more likely we'll have world peace. Because you can't have all the controlling and the manipulating and the grasping and the clinging and all these things if you have mindfulness, like if you have true mindfulness. So what's going to happen at first, he's going to get all these crowds and everybody's going to want to take pictures of him. They're going to get the same thing that's been going on. And it's kind of upsetting for him to get that much attention, actually. He's not used to it. Even though you've seen him getting a lot of the attention over the last several months and even before that, he's not used to it. That's a lot of energy being aimed at one animal, one creature in particular. And he is a creature. He is not a god, by the way. There are people out there who are calling him a god. He is not a god. He is not a Buddha. He is not Buddha reincarnated. He is a dog. He is a dog who had been a monk in previous lifetimes. And his previous lifetimes were very powerful lifetimes. But in this lifetime, he is in the body of a dog. And he is not a god. And he doesn't want to be worshipped. So that makes him nervous right there when people approach him as he's some kind of deity. And he doesn't get that so much in the United States, but he definitely gets that in the Asian countries that he's been to, where he is being worshipped as if he is some sort of godlike figure. And that's a lot of energy to put on somebody, right? And so when he was in, I think it was Nepal or India, he actually had aggression issues with some other dogs. But that wasn't just because of the other dogs, it was because he was all pent up. Right? And then that was the tipping point that he couldn't handle the stress anymore. So he released it by having aggression on a street dog. And the street dog didn't do anything. It was just there, right? The dog did not attack Aloka. And people were saying, well, he's defending the monks. He wasn't defending the monks. He had too much tension in his body because we are all like frequency. We are all energetic beings. And we're exchanging energy all the time, either consciously or unconsciously. This is what I learned in Reiki. And so when all those people are petting him, all that energy in that person, whether there's sadness or anger or whatever it is, all the subconscious stuff is coming out through people's hands and it's going into the dog. And then when people gaze at the dog through their eyes, or when they think about the dog, or when they worry about, because a lot of people in the U.S. were worried about Aloka, and so they were sending all that fear. And so all the millions of people around the world that are watching this dog are all sending him a signal. They're all sending him frequencies. And he's not a very big dog. He's on the small side of medium. And his aura is pretty big, but it gets cluttered up with all, like he really needs to have his chakras rebalanced. I mean, if the monks see this video, which I doubt they will, but maybe they will, you need to take him to an energy healer if he's not already doing it and have those chakras rebalanced, especially after his last few trips and being on the airplane and, and all the other stuff that went on. He needs to have his chakras rebalanced because they're clogged up and it's making him exhausted. So he's saying right now he's in a time of rest. Panyakara is not, and he's concerned about the monk because he doesn't want the monk to collapse from exhaustion because of this, yeah, and it's kind of a grasping in itself, this clinging in itself, where there is this feeling that the monk has that he has to save the world, like he may not be consciously aware of it, but it's there. And he pushes himself very hard. He may not always get sleep. He may not eat enough. I mean, he pushes himself very hard. This is not, I can't get into the monk's energy because I don't have permission. But this is from Aloka's perspective. This might not even be true. This is from Aloka's perspective. Now Aloka feels like he's the father, like he's the parent. And so he gets concerned about, his father, his human father, the monk, and also he thinks about the other monk all the time, the one that's in Thailand. He thinks about him all the time. And he still has like an energetic highway between that monk. Like their bond is always there. It doesn't matter the distance. They feel each other. And it's almost like a psychic bond. Like it's very powerful. And he's also going to be doing some animal rescuing efforts over in Thailand. So he's going to either speak at different events or he's going to do something with animal advocacy. And I see him having his own dog and a cat. So in the future, I do get a sense that he'll have a dog and a cat. That will be there'll be other. It won't just be him. There'll be a community around this because he realizes he has a gift. And all the monks that are attracted to Aloka are going to find out that they have this gift with animals, and that they're being called not only to bring peace to humans, but also to help all these other creatures. And I see things with birds and horses and bigger animals and little animals. Yeah, I see a lot going on, and I definitely see that trio of the two monks and Aloka. And there's going to be a lot done in the lifespan of Aloka. Now, I don't know how Aloka's, I don't want to know how long he's going to live, but in that lifespan, there's going to be concentrated efforts that are going to make a huge, 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 huge difference in animal welfare and also mindfulness for humans and some other things. So this is, yeah, and so all of them had been there at the original Buddha. All of them had been part of those original teachings, which is why there's such an effort to save the, like they have the Bodhi tree in the United States now. I think it's in quarantine for 4 years. And so they got a sapling of the Bodhi tree. So there's going to be a Bodhi tree growing in Texas. The Bodhi tree is the tree that, and it's from the original tree that it's got to be like thousands of years old because it's the original tree that Siddhartha found enlightenment. And there's a whole story with that, but I'm not going to get into it. But Aloka says he'll never pee on the Bodhi tree because that would, dogs pee on trees and stuff. He goes that he can't pee on that tree. That's sacred. And any sacred object he will not, he will not go to the bathroom on. But everything else is subject, he's saying, because he's a dog. That's what he does. And so the last question is, what are you going to do about your aggression toward other dogs? And then we'll end with that one, because I know the airplanes are going to come back soon. And I'm going to turn off these ocean sounds. Okay. Okay, so he knows there's an issue. Like he knows, and he knows it hurts the feelings of the other monks when he does that. And it hurts the feelings of other people around him. And he knows he's hurting the other dogs. Like he's causing fright for the other dogs. And he feels really bad. He feels remorse for what happened in India because that other dog didn't mean any harm. But he says he just exploded. Like he had so much tension in him and he doesn't get to say, like he doesn't get to, it's not like he has an animal communicator traveling with him, right? So there's nobody to speak up for him in the way like, maybe Aloka needs to rest. Maybe Aloka needs to be away from the crowd. Maybe Aloka's hot. Maybe Aloka, there's no one to really get a sense of what he's feeling. And he has mixed feelings, right? Because on one hand, he wants to be with the monks. And when they take him away from the monks, he cries. So then they said, okay, we'll let him stay with the monks. But then when he stays with the monks, there's all these people, right? So many people. And he's showing me waves and waves and waves of people from his standpoint, right? Being on four legs and a dog and all these things above him and coming at his face and coming from the sides and he can't see it coming. And, and it's like, so if you had a bunch of hands coming at your face like this and above your head and on your back and, all this different energy from the little kids to the adults to the elderly to people with walkers, wheelchairs, he has nothing against humans. He has nothing against people, but it's too much. It's too much. And if any of us were in that position and you're on all fours and everything's coming above you, it's going to cause tension. It's going to cause stress. And there's no way around it. It doesn't matter how mindful you are. It doesn't matter how peaceful you are. At some point, you're going to snap if there's not enough rest, if there's not enough quiet time, if there's not enough, these are my boundaries, please respect them, and people not understanding his body language. Because he gives the body language. You can see it in the videos, and he's saying, yes, I do. I don't want to bite anybody. I don't want to hurt anybody, but I will shrink. I will pull away. I will look away. I will do whatever I have to do because it's too much. And he doesn't like the meet and greets. And I thought that was the case when I was watching his body language. And he's saying he does not like that. That's his least favorite thing that he has to do. And he'd rather not do it. Like he doesn't mind sitting with the monks and being funny once in a while and, and kind of walking through the crowd and saying hi to people. He'd rather do it on his terms. So if he wants to meet people, then he will walk around, but he doesn't want to be on a leash where he can't get away and everybody's coming at him. And he knows nobody means him any harm, but he doesn't like it. And that's his honesty. He doesn't like it. And it would be like if you put a little kid in that position. He's like a little child. Think of him like that. He's like a little child. He's like a wise monk in the body of a child, but this is actually a dog. And dogs are very sensitive. It's like their nerves are on the tip of their skin. I mean, they're very sensitive. They hear well. They smell everything. Their brains are very complex. They have to process things, much well, like everybody has to process their own brain, but their brains are incredible. And if too much information is coming in, he can't process it quick enough. And if he's smelling all these different people and feeling all these different energies, it's too much. It's too much. And that's what he wants to say on that. Okay, so I'm going to let him go because I feel like he's really tired and he needs to rest. And he says it was his pleasure to be able to communicate with me, and it's my pleasure to be able to communicate with him. And I have communicated with him in the past, so he's familiar with me, at least energetically. He's never met me physically, although he says he'd like to someday. So who knows? Maybe the monks will come to Washington State or something and do something with the animal sanctuaries here, and then maybe I can go and see them. That'd be nice. I'm going to put that on my plate of wishes. Okay, so I'm letting him go. He's in his pink bubble. I'm sending him off, cutting off the telepathic highway, because that's how we communicate telepathically. And yeah, so thank you for that. Okay, if anybody wants me to channel him again in the future, let me know in the comments, because I know that's not what people are expecting when they come here so much. And if you know people that are into Aloka, there are other people channeling him as well. But, bring people here to this, populate this channel, please, because work's fun to do, but, I'd like to be able to reach more people. And I'm sure there's probably some reason why it hasn't happened yet. Timing and all that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing, liking, sharing, commenting. And I was trying to keep this under an hour, and it looked like it's pretty long. But hopefully you enjoyed it, and have a wonderful week bonding with your pets and all the other animals and creatures around you. And remember to be mindful. May you be peaceful. May you be happy. May you be well and free from all suffering. And may you be filled with loving kindness. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.